Welcome to This Golfing Life, a Sounder podcast. My name is Dan Davies, and each week I talk to a different guest about golf, life, and the relationship between the two.
Golf provided a great deal of emotional serenity for me, spiritual serenity as well, because, you know, it coincided with me giving up all the things that were bad for me in life. And so every time I played golf, I felt that I was, it helped me, overcome my allergy to alcohol, shall we say. Cypress, because it's like three different parts. The first six are quite open, the next six are through the trees, and the last six are by the sea, really. But my goodness, what a magnificent golf course that is. It's breathtaking how beautiful it is. If you're only a fair weather golfer in this country, you'll never play golf, let's face it. So you just... As my dad used to say, there's no such thing as bad weather. There's just bad rain clothes. Knock on the door, and the door opens, and it's Bill Clinton. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Bill Clinton. So he starts saying, so I hear you like golf. And I'm like, yes, I love golf. And then he looks at me and he goes, Dougray, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm filming. He's like, I was going to ask you if you wanted to come play golf with me and Tiger up in Sherwood.
This week's guest was born in St Andrews, the home of golf. He has appeared in films such as Twin Town, Mission Impossible 2, Ripley's Game, My Week with Marilyn. The list goes on. He's played characters as disparate as Sir Matt Busby, Gordon Brown, and Arthur Miller. He's also a bona fide golf fanatic. So welcome to This Golfing Life, Mr. Dougray Scott. What have you been up to since I've last seen you?
My goodness. Well, last year was very busy. I started off in Scotland doing a Channel 4 series called Summer Water that came out, and then I went to Denmark to do a movie with Nicholas Winding Refn called Her Private Hell. And then I went to Ireland to do a BBC series called Crookhaven that's just come out, where I basically play a posh vegan. So it's the first family show I've ever done, which means that my young child can watch it. Because everything else that I've done, you wouldn't be able to watch it until he's 30. It's about this guy who runs this school for crooks. And he sort of takes in these waifs and strays, a lot of them from broken homes, and he trains them to be spies. Trains them in skullduggery. It's based on these novels by J.J. Conja, and they're brilliant. In fact, I read them to Milo, my little boy who's 11, and he loves the novels. Anyway, so that just came out. And then after that, I did a series in South Africa called...
So hold on a second. We've got Ireland, Scotland, South Africa. There seems to be a link here already, in the sense that these are three great centres of golf. Are you telling me that you only accept jobs based on the volume of high-level golf courses in a territory where you're filming?
Well, I don't really need to do that for Scotland because that's open to me anytime I want. Weirdly, I didn't play golf. When I was in Scotland filming Summer Water,
Tell the truth.
I had no time. I promise you, I had no time because I would go there, film, and fly back to London. And then when I was in Ireland, I had 7 weeks to film, 7 weeks out of 17 weeks. And I had all my scenes to film in those 7 weeks, and I had so much to film. So I was really hoping, because I was there during the Open at Portrush, and I had no time. I didn't even have time because the RNA said come along, and I didn't have any time to do it, and I had no time to play golf. I have played Portrush and Portmarnock and County Down, amazing golf courses. And then when I was in South Africa, I did play golf. I played Royal Cape, I played Stellenbosch, I played Paro Valley, played a couple of others as well. Royal Cape.
Is it Samuel L. Jackson who has it written into his contract that whatever film he's on, he has a certain amount of time off to play golf? Have you ever considered a similar provision in your contracts of work?
No, I haven't. Weirdly, when we spoke before about Cowrie Cliffs, which is in New Zealand, when I did a movie called Perfect Creature about 22 years ago, 23 years ago. Anyway, they put it in the contract to entice me to do the movie. And I was like, you don't need to put that in the contract to entice me to New Zealand. But anyway, they didn't. So I spent 5 days at Cowrie Cliffs at this golf place, which was stunning. I mean, utterly stunning. Good golf course as well.
Golf place is one way to describe Cowrie Cliffs. I mean, I think it's on a lot of people's bucket list. I mean, it's meant to be absolutely incredible, isn't it?
It's stunning. Yeah, it's really stunning. I mean, the vistas, the topography, the country's incredible, New Zealand. I find it really interesting country. It has an extraordinary energy to it, very spiritual, made me feel very kind of calm. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. South Africa has that same, I find South Africa's got an incredible energy to it as well. I think it's to do with the political upheaval in that country over the last 30 years since the end of apartheid, but it's become this really interesting place to visit. And it's really interesting how informed and intelligent people in South Africa are about world politics and about the politics in their own country as well. So I find that kind of inspiring and fascinating. So I played golf there. Yeah, so then this year I've sort of taken a little bit of time off just because, I have a production company. So I have a lot of productions in development, some with ITV, some with BBC. And so I've had to devote my time to that. And then I may do a second series of the show that I did last year. I may do a second season of Crookhaven. I've got a movie coming up in September. I have various other things that I may or may not do. So it's been nice to be at home with the family. In the first couple of months of the year, I have to say.
You're listening to This Golfing Life, a Sounder podcast. You can find out more about Sounder at soundergolf.com. You were born in St Andrews.
I was.
A proud son of Glenrothes. Talk to us a little bit about the place you grew up in and the environment you grew up in and how that part of the world is so steeped in golf that it's now in your blood.
It's weird because as we're speaking, I'm looking at a photograph of one, my father, and two, the back door of my council house in Glenrothes. So I was born in Craigtown Park Hospital in St Andrews. And then I was brought up about 20 miles away from there in a new town called Glenrothes on a council estate in an area called Woodside. Which was interesting. I mean, it was quite, I'm always mindful. I always hear the voice of my mother saying, why did you say that about Glenrothes? It's a very nice town. She was from Glasgow, and we actually spent a lot of time in Glasgow when I was growing up. My dad was from Barhead. My mother was from Kelvindale. And so we spent many, many weekends, many holidays with cousins, uncle, aunt, friends of the family, and because I think they missed it so much. But the reason they moved to Glenrothes is because they were staying in a corporation flat in Glasgow. My mum, my dad, my dad's brother, Tom, and my brother, David, were in this one-room corporation flat, which is like a council flat, but no inside toilet. So in those days, they were building all these new towns, which is a bit like what the Labour government are proposing to do now, build all these new towns. And so they would get a council house that had like 3 bedrooms and an inside toilet, little garden, and it was on the edge of the town. And so they kind of took up the offer and moved to the East Coast. So I was brought up there. But I kind of feel a little bit bi-coastal in terms of my identity, as it were, because when people say you're a Fifer, I'm like, yeah, I am, but I also feel part Ouija as well, just because of the influence of my parents. And it's a tough neighbourhood, what can I say? It was tough, but, it brought me, it shaped me. It is kind of responsible for who I am today. What the great thing about being brought up in Fife was that there was lots of golf courses. And so my dad taught me when I was very young, 5. I remember he put a golf club in my hands and he says, that's you right there. So we sort of swing the golf club in the back garden, and then he would take me out. And Office had a golf course. It was very hilly, but we played that. And when I eventually got better at golf, he says, you can play with me and my friends. He said, but you have to keep up. If you can't keep up, you can't play. So I learned to play very quickly, very early on. But we also would travel, because he was a salesman. So he would travel around Scotland, and sometimes he would take me with him, and we would go and play 9 holes, during the warmer months when he'd finished his work. And so I got to play a lot of old James Braid golf courses up in the north of Scotland. And there's so many, Dan, so many great golf courses up there. And then I also get to play courses at St Andrews because they were accessible. I remember playing the old course, but only at Christmas. It was the only time we could get on. But I would play the Eden course. I loved the Eden course, Jubilee, the new, and then, of course, Anstruther, Ely. Ely's a great golf course, Pittenweem, and then Leven Thistle, which is kind of the Scoonie golf course. My dad used to take me there.
Where was your dad a member? Was he a member anywhere, or was he a travelling golfer?
He was a member of Glenrothes, I think. but he never really, you didn't need to be a member anywhere because there were so many muni golf courses throughout Fife that we just turn up and play. You put your ball in the chute, pay your 50 pence for the junior. Maybe he was a couple of quid, something like that. And off you go. And actually winding forward from that, when I was in New Zealand, I did something kind of by accident that actually reminded me of my youth with my dad, because when I was young traveling with my dad, we used to turn up at these golf courses, and some of them, they would have an honesty box and you just put your green fee in and then go and play because, you know, they weren't run by anyone. They were just there. And when I was in New Zealand, I was near a place called Uberu. And I got in my car. We filmed a lot of nights in this movie. It was a vampire film, so there was a lot of night shoots. So I'd maybe sleep a few hours, get up, and then get in my car and I'd drive. And there was all these golf courses that were just around, and they had honesty boxes. And so I was like, oh, it's like back home in Scotland. So that was it, my introduction to golf, you know, through my father. And I played quite a few competitions when I was a kid as well. I remember playing one at Leslie golf course in torrential rain. I mean, I was so wet. It was just, to me, golf is synonymous with sort of inclement weather. And so it doesn't bother me. I mean, the older I've got, the more unlikely I am to go out in the pouring rain, but I still do it because you just can't. If you're only a fair weather golfer in this country, you'll never play golf. Let's face it. So you just, as my dad used to say, there's no such thing as bad weather. There's just bad rain clothes.
Other than playing fast, what did your dad teach you about the game and the values of the game?
Well, he taught me, you know, it's a game of honesty and you are, you know, your own judge of that. And it was all about the integrity of the game. And he said there's a lot of lessons to be learned from golf, you know, gentlemanly conduct, being fair to your opponent, applauding your opponent when they hit a good shot, being gracious in defeat, as well as, you know, being kind in victory, not gloating. I mean, he had a lot of these qualities, my dad, but mainly just, you know, don't forget to smell the flowers, son, when we were out there. And so it really taught me a lot. Not that I adhered to that for a lot of my life, but the older I've got, the more I do sort of have the ability to live in the present, to live in the day, and I have a lot of gratitude in my life. And my dad was he did lots of things. He was a footballer. He was a copy boy for the Daily Express. He fought in the war. He was an actor with his brother in the Glasgow Unity Theatre, and he ended up being a salesman. And so we were a poor family. We never went on foreign holidays. We would go to caravan places and sort of B&B places throughout Scotland. He never would buy anything on tick. Wouldn't do that. So subsequently, you know, he never bought me I mean, listen, I'm not complaining about it because, listen, there's a lot of people who were a lot worse off than we were, but I never had a new bike. I never had trendy clothes or anything like that. I had hand-me-downs. Even times I wore my big sister's clothes, my big brother's clothes. But that's just the way it was, you know?
Did your brother play at all, or your sister?
Yeah, my brother had a swing like, what's his name? The Irish golfer.
Eamon Darcy.
Eamon Darcy, yeah. There you go. That's you right there.
I know.
Were telepathic, me and you. He had a swing like Eamon Darcy. It was really funny.
You talked about going on holiday in caravans and stuff like that. Was golf always part of the equation when you went on those holidays?
Yeah.
Would he always try and squeeze around in? I mean, I remember my dad saying to my mum, saying to me, go and ask your mum whether it's all right if you ask me that we go and play golf. So I spent most of my holidays as a child going, Mum, is it okay if I ask Dad whether we can go and play golf, when it was his idea all along? I mean, was he a bit like that? My mother put up with it. I mean, we would go, I tell you where we used to play quite a lot was in Machrihanish in Mullock and Tyre, which I'm a member of now. There's two golf courses. Well, there's three actually. There's three lovely golf courses. One is Machrihanish, the old one, which has got the best opening par 4 in golf, according to Tom Watson. And then you've got the new course here, Machrihanish Dunes, which opened about 18, maybe 20 years ago now. And then you've got Dunaverty, which is a beautiful golf course. It's right next to the caravan site that we used to stay on. So I played there a lot. And I just remember glorious summers playing golf
at Dunaverty. I sort of go there every year, and I stay in a cottage, and I rent a cottage, and I sort of play golf on my own sometimes. There's a few local guys there that I'll play with, and I just love it, the simplicity of it. And the golf course, I think, is magnificent. I've had one golf course to play at the end of my life. I would choose Machrihanish.
And Dunaverty has really come to the attention of a much, much wider audience in recent years. It's become regarded as a sort of secret treasure, but not so secret anymore. A lot of people are aware now of Dunaverty. How would you describe Dunaverty to people who might still have it on their bucket list? Because a lot of people do now.
Well, it's a golf course that's got fences around the green to keep the sheep off.
I'm used to that.
And but it's a beautiful, I mean, it's just right there in front of you. It's like as God intended it to be. There's been no manipulation. And the topography around there is very hilly, and the fourth hole is a par 3 that plays into a punch bowl, so it's a blind tee shot, and that's I'd say the signature hole of the golf course. It's like beautifully sort of structured hole, which is just as God intended it to be. And then you'll play by the sea, so the weather's glorious. There's just nothing better than playing Dunaverty. It's a very sort of beautiful, rugged links golf course, as is Machrihanish. So, I would say it's my favourite golf course. I think originally the Machrihanish was designed by old Tom Morris.
It looks like you're sitting there, Dougray, looking at a picture of your dad on the wall opposite. Do you think of your dad every time you play golf, even if only fleetingly? Or
I think about that time. Yeah, I do. I think about him because he died a long time ago, like 30 years, almost 30 years ago. But yeah, I do think about him when I play golf. He was great. I mean, he basically sort of rhythm. Don't rush it. It was all up and down. He said, this golf swing's very simple, son. He said, you turn, and then you let it go. And I'll tell you who else when I was at the Dunhill Links, the first time.
That's the year I was there, when we met.
Yeah, when we met. And Paul McGinley was there, and I'd known Paul because I met him in Monte Carlo when I was at the Laureus World Sports Awards, and we played, and he was on one of the holes playing. He played with everyone on that one hole, and so I got to know him a bit, and great guy, Paul. And then when I was at the Dunhill, Bob Torrance was there, and Bob Torrance said, "Yeah, I was up there. So you stand over there. Let me have a look at you. Go on, swing the ball. Go on." And I was like, so I took the club back. He's like, "Turn." I was like, all right. So I turned, and he's like, "No, turn." And I turned again. He says, "Turn." And I turned again. He said, "Turn." And I was like, "Bob, I'll break my back if I turn anymore." And so I turned one more time, and he's like, "That's you right there." That was the golf lesson.
I think I was there when he did that, because I just remember, "That's you. And then he said something about somebody's feet. Was it about your feet? Your feet are dancing. They're dancing.
He says, "You've got dancing feet, son. You've got dancing feet. Let's look at your feet."
You have got quite fidgety feet when it comes to playing golf. I don't want to put that in your mind for your next round. But no, you give it the slight Michael Flatley's when you're about to hit the ball.
Well, I like to be lively. I like to be ready. I like to be, in sort of, I like to be in motion.
I'm not going to blow smoke up your proverbial, but you are a good golfer and a fearsome competitor. What's your handicap now?
I'm a terribly fearsome competitor. It is very true. My handicap is 0.6.
What? 0.6? So you literally must have it written into your contract that you are playing golf every other day on every film shoot you do.
I mean, listen, there's a lot of better golfers. There's a lot of golfers with a better swing than me. There's a lot of golfers who are probably, you can look at them and go, they're better golfers. But what I do have is a good short game, and I'm a good putter. So, I mean, that's not me being big-headed. It's just the reality is that's what saves me on my round. Because quite often when I'm playing really well, driving the ball really well, and my irons are really crisp, because it's all about rhythm. When my rhythm is slow and relaxed, I hit the ball great. But that's not always when I shoot the lowest score. It's often when maybe my game's a bit off, but my short game's really on, really sharp. And so I've shot my best rounds when perhaps I've not been swinging the best, but my lowest rounds, especially at Sunningdale, where I play, where I'm a member, is when my short game's really, really sharp.
So what is your best score on the old, and what's your best score on the new at Sunningdale?
Best score on the old is 70. Best score on the new is 68, which I've shot a couple of times.
That's very impressive, because I think the new is harder than the old. There's been a lot of talk about all the changes at Sunningdale New. Gil Hanse has come in and taken out a lot of trees, and it's been talked about as a sort of a big restoration in terms of taking the course back to what it looked like when Harry Colt, put his mark on it. What are your thoughts on the?
Well, before I give my verdict on it, I want to talk a little bit about golf architecture. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, you look at the photographs from like 100 years ago and there's no trees and it's all open. And I say to someone, I said, do you think a golf course architect didn't envisage that trees would grow over the next 100 years? And they go, what do you mean? I'm like, well, those trees were planted when they built the golf course. And they knew that trees grew. And so over the course of the next 40, 50, 60, 70 years, they would have envisaged the holes being surrounded by trees. I never thought about that. And I'm like, well, you should do. And so when some golf course architects come in and they say, these trees were never meant to be there, I question that and I challenge that, because I think that a lot of the trees were meant to be there, not to interfere with the hole per se. I don't believe that trees should interfere, but I think they have a great way of framing a hole. It gives you a sense of being at one with nature. And if they're indigenous, that's great. I mean, sometimes you have trees that are kind of alien to that topography, that geographical area, but a lot of the time they look entirely natural. So I'm not necessarily a fan of taking trees away in order to make it like the golf course was when it was first built, for reasons that I've already stated. But sometimes, but having said that, some of the changes, and I think you have to wait really a couple of years in order before you really truly judge the changes that Gil Hanse has made. I've seen some of his other golf courses, and he's undoubtedly a terrific architect.
Yeah, I can imagine it was a pretty keenly contested debate. Yeah.
I think with some of the older members, and I understand it. I see it through both sets of eyes, but I had an initial reaction to it. I was like, oh, but then I thought, well, I think you should just keep your powder dry really until it has a chance to bed in.
Yeah.
And then really see it play the way it's meant to be played. And then, then judge it, give it a couple of years. But I think it's good that they've, looked at the course and gone, okay, we can improve on it. If you can improve on it, great. If it doesn't make an improvement, then it would have been a huge waste of money. But I suspect that in a couple of years' time, the people who really don't like it may change their minds, I think. But anyway, I love the golf course. I love the club. It's such an eclectic mix of people. Got a lot of really good friends there, a lot of great characters.
You're listening to This Golfing Life, a Sounder podcast. For 20% off your next Sounder purchase, simply enter the code POD20 at checkout. That's POD and the number 20. Check out new season polos and year-round wardrobe staples at soundergolf.com. Code limited to one use per customer. So we met at the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship in 2007, which I think goes down as my greatest week in golf ever. You've played in it 19 years ago. It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
You've played in it a few times. I mean, it is quite special, isn't it?
It's the most exciting week you'll ever have in your life if you're a golfer. It's all just extraordinary, playing with professional golfers, being around professional golfers, just seeing how far away your game is to theirs, how different pro golfers hit the ball than you do. I mean, I always remember watching Tiger Woods play. I've got a Tiger Woods story as well. The sound, the noise that he makes when he hits the ball is just so different than what I've ever heard anyone else hit the ball.
Yeah, I agree. I saw him play for the first time in 1999 at Brookline at that Ryder Cup, and it was like a sort of military jet taking off when he hit a ball with a driver. It was extraordinary.
I mean, they did a test of his swing back in 2000 when he won Pebble Beach by, 12, 15 strokes, something like that. They've tested the sort of from, I don't know how they managed to do it, but if he was playing then with the equipment that he has today, he'd have been, and his average on the tour then was 298 yards off the tee. Now he would be almost 340 yards off the tee if he'd used the equipment then that they have now. 140. I mean, guys, I always, because he had a Titleist 983 KD driver, something like that, with a steel shaft. It was a tiny head, but my goodness me, his swing was just extraordinary. I've never seen a swing. I mean, Ben Hogan swing and Tiger Woods swing, I think, were two of the greatest swings I've ever seen in my life. I will never see two better swings than that. When you watch footage of Hogan play, and I always think, every time I go to Carnoustie, because I was in Carnoustie a lot last year, visiting my brother who was sick, and we used to end up having lunch at the golf club that he was a member of. And I always remember the stories about Ben Hogan playing in the 1953 Open Championship, where he won 3. Well, the only reason he couldn't do the PGA, because it was the same week or the next week, he couldn't get back in time.
And he had to qualify as well next door at Panmure, didn't he? He came over on a liner and he still had to qualify, even though he'd won the first 2 majors of the year.
The staff at the hotel, the B&B or the house that he was staying in, applauded him when he left, because they were so impressed with the fact, because they all knew about his car crash and how he'd recovered from his car crash. And he had to tell his caddy to stop pinching his candy from his golf bag because the caddy was so nervous. I think, in all honesty, and I still do this to this day, that Ben Hogan was so beautifully attired on the golf course, and he used to wear these beautiful cashmere cardigans. I wear that on the golf course even today. I tried to get away from the non-traditional golf shoes, of which I've got many now, the ones that are really comfortable. I actually just recently opened this box that had been shipped from America, and I had all these old Alan Edmonds golf shoes, which are leather soled, but my God, they're comfortable. I wore them the other day on the golf course. Oh my goodness gracious me, they're comfortable. I like the top button being done up a la Ben Hogan. I like the wool even when I used to play, and I used to live in LA, and I would go out and play, and my wife, Claire, she was like, "What are you wearing wool trousers for?" I was like, Hogan used to wear wool trousers all the time. And she's like, "Yeah, shorts." I turn up and I'd swear to God, 100 degrees, out Angeles National. I was like in wool trousers. Eventually I changed to wearing shorts.
Do you remember
I do.
At LACC, Dougray?
No, they wouldn't let me be an actor.
Well, what's the deal there with the 3 clubs? You got the 3 George Thomas clubs, and obviously you spent a lot of time in LA, and we'll come on to that part of your life and your career.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you've got Riviera, you've got Bel Air, you've got LACC, and they're all George Thomas designed. But they're all very different clubs, aren't they?
Yeah, very different membership. LACC is traditionally waspy. Riviera is, waspy as well, and
Bel Air's pretty waspy.
Bel Air's very sort of show busy.
Right.
It's very show busy and sort of a great atmosphere. I love all 3 golf courses are fantastic. Riviera is my favourite. Hogan's Alley. So I always think about it, and there's so many photographs of Hogan when you walk through the clubhouse at Riviera. Amazing golf course. Beautifully designed. LACC is an amazing golf course as well. It doesn't suit my game so much.
Why is Riviera so amazing? Say it's so beautifully designed. How does that sort of impact your experience?
I think with any golf course, you've got to really think about position and your tee shot. But Riviera, some changes in elevation, subtle changes in elevation. I think the green complexes are really, really well designed. I think the 10th is probably the best short par 4 of any golf course anywhere in the world. Riviera, it's just flummoxes you every time. You think, do you go for it? I always try and play short, so I have a little maybe 100-yard or 80-yard pitch to the green. But you're always going to be left because it's shaped like that, Rhodean green. So you need to come in from the left side. If you try and come in from the right-hand side, you're dead. Take a miracle shot. So I like that. And I just think the way it's framed, the trees, it's a tree-lined golf course. And it just looks so beautiful and it's immaculate. And it's just a golf course with such great tradition. And I think LACC, now they've played the US Open there, people will be more aware of that golf course now as well. But again, that's a terrific golf course. And Bel Air, they've changed. They refurbished it, redesigned it. I haven't played it since they redesigned it. Yeah, I mean, 3 very different golf courses, all designed by the same guy originally. Amazing, extraordinary. And I'll get on to Cypress. I played once as well. My goodness, that is in my top 3
Top
golf courses
3?
in the world.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, where in the top 3 is it, and which great courses is it alongside?
I think the old course, maybe I'll have a top 4. The old course at St Andrews, just because
Yeah, I agree.
it's so unusual to have the 1st and the 18th in the middle, almost in the middle of the town. It's so unusual. It's just odd and beautiful and wonderful. And there's old Tom Morris shop there, and the history of that golf course and there's an emotional sort of story to that as well, with, young Tom Morris dying of heartbreak because his wife died, and old Tom Morris. It's just such a great story, and the history of golf in Fife makes it incredibly special. It's kind of the home of golf, and so it's always got to be in your top 3, the old course. Machrihanish is in my top 4 because I just have such an emotional connection to that from childhood, and I'm still a member there. Cypress, because it's like 3 different parts, like the first 6, the next 6, and then the last 6. The first 6 are quite open, the next 6 are through the trees, and the last 6 are by the sea, really. But my goodness, what a magnificent golf course that is. It's breathtaking how beautiful it is. And then my favourite links course, aside from the old course, is Muirfield, which I just think is extraordinary. It's just so well designed.
Why Muirfield in particular? Because I thought you might have said something like, you mentioned Portrush and you mentioned County Down. What is it about Muirfield that puts that in that elevated category?
Well, to be clear, Portrush and County Down are 2 wonderful, wonderful golf courses. Portrush, I think, is just magnificent. It's extraordinary. But Muirfield, I think, everything's right there in front of you. There's one hole that has a blind tee shot, which is the 11th. It's a short par 4, which I'd like to say I've driven on a couple of occasions. I get to play there with the wonderful Douglas Connon, who's an old friend of mine. He's a member, past captain. I think the experience of Muirfield, a lot of people look at Muirfield and they go, oh, it's a little bit snotty. I don't find it that at all. I find it incredibly welcoming. I have a laugh when I go there with the members. I've been to a few of the dinners. It's a foursomes golf course, a bit like Rye, which I played with our friend James Day a few weeks ago. And I love foursomes. It's great fun. I think the layout is it's subtle, but it's very, very challenging, especially when the wind blows. I just love the atmosphere of the club, and the lunches obviously are incredibly famous. I think the experience of going to Muirfield for me is second to none.
You're listening to This Golfing Life, a Sounder podcast. You can find out more about Sounder at soundergolf.com.
It's a very humbling sport, isn't it? Yeah, that it's very addictive, and I know for me it became. I'm a little bit better now than I used to be, but I used to. If I had a spare hour and a half during the day, I'd get in my car, drive to Richmond, where I'm still a member, hit balls, and then work on my swing, and then come back and do that. That's how I was kind of frenzied about it. But it really golf provided a great deal of emotional serenity for me. Spiritual serenity as well, because it coincided with me giving up all the things that were bad for me in life, drinking and whatever else. And so every time I played golf, I felt that I was, it helped me, overcome my allergy to alcohol, shall we say. And I found it so kind of relaxing, and I still do. Every time I go on the golf course, I just feel at one with the world. I never get upset on the golf course. I remember my dad said to me, I threw a golf club once. He says, that will be the first and the last time that you ever throw a golf club on the golf course.
I don't want to talk about club throwing because I had a bad history, but I haven't done it. I haven't done it in many years. In fairness, I've seen the error of my ways, but it is an infuriating game, and it does make your blood boil. But it just gets under your skin, doesn't it?
My goodness gracious me. But I think if you can maintain the same sort of demeanour on the golf course when you're winning and when you're losing, I think that makes a really powerful kind of personality. And that I'm accused of being completely Switzerland, whether I'm winning or whether I'm losing. Like, I hole a putt from 25 feet. And some people say to me, look at him, he doesn't even smile. And I'm like, I don't like to gloat. I like to maintain a sort of neutrality whether I'm winning or losing. And it's true, I do. I'm I'm not over emotional on the golf course. I like to, and I think to do with my spiritual sort of rebirth, as it were, and my reintroduction to the game of golf, which had, because I'd stopped playing when I went to college. I'd play maybe once a year with friends and family and stuff like that. But then, 25 years ago, I really got back, 24 years ago. And so I played with the stage at Richmond. And, I love golf. Golf is such a huge part of my life.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's without a shadow of a doubt that was our bond, which started at the 2000s.
Yeah, we met because that's right. We were both playing in the Dunhill, and then you interviewed me and we became really good friends. And then, of course, that led to the
Mini Masters.
The famous Mini Masters.
Yes, which I don't know how we describe it really, but we were playing golf at Richmond, weren't we?
Yeah.
It was after that Dunhill links, and I remember we were on that hole along the back, which sort of goes along next to Richmond Park.
I still remember it very vividly. We were walking to the 10th tee, and you came out with this thought of yours. You said, what if we did a charity golf tournament for Luca, which it was called at the time, on a par 3 golf course with music and drink and food? And I sort of went, God, that's so different from any other charity golf tournament I've ever played. And I thought, what a great idea, because you did the Cabbage Patch.
Yeah, well, the Cabbage Patch was almost the forerunner, definitely the forerunner of RNGC and the forerunner of the Mini Masters, which one of my best mates, David Ford, created a backyard golf course at his mum and dad's farm in Bideford. And every year we had this madcap fancy dress all day knockout over this course where you had a par 5 of 26 yards and stuff like that. But it was just great fun. And I think that what short golf, I started playing pitch and putt. I've always loved short golf, even though
Yeah, and me too. I played pitch and putt in Glasgow, Rutherglen.
But I think the inspiration really was the Cabbage Patch, but also the Masters Par 3 tournament. And we were very lucky, weren't we? We were supported by some great celebs and some great businesses and raised money for Luca. But tell us a little bit about why we even did that in the first place.
Well, I got involved with Luca, the leukemia charity, after I did a movie called Ripley's Game that I did with John Malkovich. And I played a character, Jonathan Trevani, who had leukemia. He had chronic myeloid leukemia. And so, as you do as an actor, you sort of think, I need to find out about this disease, this cancer, this blood cancer. And so I went to Hammersmith Hospital and met with Professor John Goldman, who is a kind of, huge figure in the world of leukemia research. He's this sort of, everyone talks about him in hushed tones, John Goldman. What an amazing man. And so he became a friend of mine, but I spent a lot of time with him and he was explaining to me the effects of leukemia. And then I met this young girl called Joanna McVicker, Scottish girl, and she had leukemia. So I spoke to her and she came down, stayed with me in London. And then I took her to meet John Goldman, and then he had some professional dealings with her, and she was a lovely, lovely girl. And then she went traveling, and then sadly the disease came back, and then she passed away. So I think, I really wanted to do something with, if there's any use to being slightly in the public eye, it's to try and do something, good that helps other people. So I thought, let's try and raise some money for the charity. And your idea of doing a par 3 golf tournament sort of blossomed from that that wonderful day at Richmond Golf Club. And so I just thought, well, we could raise some money. We do a par 3 golf tournament. We make it different from anything else. There'll be music, there'll be booze, there'll be food, it is quite ironic that it's the booziest golf tournament I've ever been to in my life.
I was going to say, I know that was always, right. There was always a slight tension there, wasn't there, in the sense that there was a bar on every single hole and the tournament host wasn't going to go near any of them. I think more strength to you for doing that.
Thank goodness. Anyway, just for today. But anyway, we started off and I think everybody was a little bit, couldn't quite believe that it was happening because they'd never seen anything like it. And it was just vibrant and new, unique, exciting. Back in those days, we had the big screen and you were doing commentary.
We had a commentary tower.
Had a commentary tower.
And we had a floating green one year. Do you remember that? In the middle of the pond.
We had a green where we had the sort of, nearest the pin. And I think that it just was a great day for everyone. And, trying to raise money. And we had a break. We started at COVID. And then last year we started up again and we did it at Sunningdale Heath.
But this year, Friday the 26th of June at Sunningdale Heath, and you can find out more at minimastersgolf.co.uk.
We raised a lot of money last year and we want to raise more this year. And just to see the people from the charity come along, talk about their own experiences with leukemia, talk about how the charity have kind of changed their lives. And they talk about the importance of raising money in order to fund research.
Yeah, it's very sociable. That's the whole thing. We tried to create a sort of garden party, bacchanalian garden party with a golf tournament going on in the middle, a sort of Caddyshack meets the Masters Par 3 tournament. But at Sunningdale Heath, it's a little bit more genteel, but it's wonderful. So it's on Friday the 26th of June this year. So we're raising money for Leukemia UK. Yeah, so anybody interested in taking a team, head to the website. I found the transcript of that first interview before talking to you today, and there was a quote in it, and again, we just met, and it said, golf is synonymous with all the great things in life. You learn a lot about yourself. If you can control your emotions on the golf course, you're pretty much set. It becomes a template for everything else in your life. The challenges you face and leaving things behind and not dwelling on mistakes. And looking forward to the future and enjoying the present as well. I mean, that's a pretty good sort of.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did I say that?
You said that. Yeah. I mean, maybe I polished it up for you a little bit, but
Dan, I love you. Actually, that does sound like me. Yeah. No, it's true. I do feel that, and actually, that's a really good way to live your life. And golf is a sort of parallel. A metaphor. Call it what you will. I still stand by that. I really do. I love my golfing friends. I love spending time with you. I love spending time with, Jimmy Day, Forday as well. My mates at Sunningdale. I love the golf has just given me such a great insight into all different kinds of lives. And I've got to meet some really interesting people. I play golf with Sam Torrance at Sunningdale. I love Sam Torrance. And he talks and talks about golf and his experience. And I'm like, I'm a kid in the sweetie shop with Sam because he's a really nice guy. And every time I think of him, I think of his dad and I think of my dad. And so it's always quite a really enjoyable experience with him. And his boy, Daniel, as well, I play with at Sunday. He's a great guy. I get to play with McGinley. Bernard Gallagher's a member there. I play with Bernard. Bernard takes me to Wentworth quite a lot. He's a lovely man as well. So all these great golfers, and Coulthard as well. He's a friend of mine.
Coulthard's a great
player. Great guy.
Yeah.
Great commentator. Radar, Wayne Riley. Play with him. Great guy. Funny. Nice. And so I think I've been fortunate to meet all these golfers. I was going to tell you my Tiger Woods story, wasn't I?
Go on. I was going to remind you of that.
Okay. So, all right. So I'm in LA. I just met my wife. She says, come on, let's go to this party. And this party was at Ron Burkle's house, who's this kind of big billionaire business guy. And she says, there'll be a lot of people there. I'm great. So we come in, I think, through the side door, knock on the door, and the door opens. And it's Bill Clinton. And he's like, hey, Claire, how are you? Dougray, nice to meet you. How's it going? Come in. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Bill Clinton. So he starts saying, so I hear you like golf. And I'm like, yes, I love golf. And Claire knows him because I don't know how she met him, but she's known him for a few years and she hung out with him in London anyway. So we're like talking about golf and about why we love it so much. And then we're talking for a long time. And then he looks at me and he goes, Dougray, what are you doing tomorrow? And I'm thinking to myself, why is he asking me what I'm doing tomorrow? And I'm going through all this in my head when he's asking me. And I'm filming a TV series. And I'm like, tomorrow I'm filming. He's like, oh, I was going to ask you if you wanted to come play golf with me and Tiger up in Sherwood. And I'm like, with you and Tiger Woods? He says, yeah, we're playing golf tomorrow at Sherwood Country Club. You played? And I'm like going, yes, but I've never played with Tiger Woods. No, I played with the ex-president of the United States of America. He says, oh, that's such a shame you're filming. Maybe next time. And I'm going, oh my God. He's just asked me to play with him and Tiger Woods. So I go into work the next day and I'm like, oh my God, last night you should have, I was at this party with Bill Clinton and he asked me if I wanted to play golf with him and Tiger today. And they're like, what the fuck are you doing here? What's wrong with you? And I'm like, I'm filming. They're like, you should have called in sick. And I'm like, no, can't do that. Anyway, so that was
You didn't
my
get
Tiger.
to
And then he asked, no, I didn't. No, and then he asked me to play in his golf tournament, and he said we can play. And again, I was filming somewhere else, so I couldn't play. So anyway, but yeah, Bill Clinton asked me to play golf with him and Tiger Woods.
God, I mean, I was just thinking that, all the way through you telling me that story, you've just got to phone in and say, sorry, I've got a slightly upset stomach, which is also, you don't have to say anything more after that because nobody wants to hear.
No, it doesn't want
I'm
that.
terribly sorry.
It's like, they were, all the producers were like saying, you're mad. You should have just called in sick. I'm like, what would you have done if I'd been? No, I can't do that. I have that, I have that very, very strong Scottish Celtic work ethic.
But how many times have you gone to sleep and thought, what would that day have been like? How would I have played? What would a Tiger been like?
I think about it every day. Yeah, I would love to have played with him. But, I'm not dead yet, so I'll maybe get a chance to play around with him. Let me tell you, one of my greatest golfing experiences is I was playing in, I think it was Mark Wahlberg's charity golf tournament at Wilshire Country Club in LA. And then Arnold Palmer was there. And I was playing, I think, the fourth hole. Anyway, I turned around and he's there. He's right there next to me, watching me hit my shot. And I'd hit a good tee shot and I hit my second into the green. And I hit a really good pitch. It was like a 100-yard pitch shot. It's like, great shot. And then he came up and we started chatting. And then after the round, I sat down with him and his wife. I've still got a photograph of me and Arnold Palmer from that day. And it was just he was such a nice guy. What a nice guy he was, Arnold Palmer. And we sat and we had lunch together and we just chatted about golf and about everything in his life at La Trobe and his dad, who was the greenkeeper, and, what a nice guy he was.
If you could have one conversation, or if you could have a conversation with one figure from the history of golf, who would it be and why, and what would you ask them?
Hogan. I'd say, what were you digging for in the dirt? I think I know, having read James Dodson's incredible biography of Hogan. I think a lot of his life, he was trying to figure out why his dad shot himself. And I think the golf for him was an outlet or a means through which he could channel his confusion and his pain and his sense of loss. There's that famous photograph of him on the horse with his dad. Such a beautiful photograph. And I think that the hours of practice and how he never suffered through that great conversation when Gary Player called him up and asked him for advice about the golf swing. And Hogan says to him, who makes your golf clubs? He said, Dunlop. He says, on the phone, Mr. Dunlop. Put the phone down. He obviously didn't suffer fools gladly, and him and Palmer had a bit of a falling out, shall we say. But I'm fascinated by Hogan, his sort of dedication to it. You read 5 easy lessons, and he talks about the golf swing in such an eloquent and sort of wonderful way. But, his upbringing, his sort of poverty, his dedication, and the adversity he faced after that, the crash that he had with his wife and how he came back and he never gave up. And I think that I've sort of, in my profession, you get so many sort of rejections, there's so many obstacles in your way. And I think you have to behave as if there's no obstacles there. You have to imagine that you're living in the success that may not actually be in the present, but you almost have to not pretend, but you're living the desires that you have already. And I think that that's what brought Hogan through that incredibly difficult period, is like he could see what it was like to win another major, even when he was told by the doctor that he might not walk again. He was told by the doctor that he might have to have his legs amputated. So I look at that and I just go, I take great inspiration from that story of him and his life and what he achieved in golf. And you use it as a template, a metaphor for your own life. And so, yeah, I would go back and I would have a conversation with Hogan.
This is a Sounder podcast. Sounder are supporting the Mini Masters this year, as they have done in the past, which is fantastic. Sounder's ethos is play well. And that is not just about your score. It's not just about how many amazing shots you've hit, but it's about the overall experience and what it leaves you with. When you look back at your golfing life, when are you happiest, or when have you been happiest?
You know, I think any day playing at Sunningdale is a very happy experience. I think I was really happy playing golf with my dad on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday morning on any golf course, because it was just such a great bonding experience. He was a typical working class man. He showed his love for me by what he did rather than by what he said. And then I think, you know, all those summers that I've spent in Machrihanish playing rounds of golf with the locals, and there's an Irish guy there, Eric, who's a sort of caddy master. He's a funny guy, great guy. Love playing golf with him at Machrihanish. You know, I think that with really good friends, I think playing golf well adds to the experience. But even one shot will get you keep coming back, will inspire you to return to the golf course. And it's almost like, you know, being an alcoholic is a bit like, you know, once you put one drink down, you're always thinking about the next one and your obsession with the next one. It's like once you finish one round of golf, all you can think about is the next one, you know? So in some ways it's an addiction, but it's a healthy addiction. I think golf has given me such joy throughout the course of my life, especially in the last 25 years. And I've played in some magnificent golf courses throughout my time. I've been very privileged to play in some of the best golf courses in the world. You know, I love it all over the place. You know? And so I think that golf is kind of, you know, as I said, what I said to you sort of 20 years ago when we first met, it's a great template. It's a great sort of lesson that you learn on the golf course that you can apply to your life. Leave it behind. Don't dwell on the past. Remain in the present and forget about your mistakes. You can't change what's happened. Just think about where you are right now. And that's you right there.
Which in my case is usually behind a tree.
Well, I've been behind a few trees in my time as well.
Well, listen, mate.
Not always on the golf.
Yeah. Well, listen, mate, it's great talking to you as always. I look forward to our game at Sunningdale, hopefully before this year's Mini Masters. We return to Sunningdale.
Yeah, well, just let me know when you want to play it and then we'll make it work.
Yeah. All right, mate. Thanks very much for your time. Great talking to you. See you very soon.
Pleasure. Lots of love.
Thank you for listening to This Golfing Life, a Sounder podcast. You can find out more about Sounder at soundergolf.com. If you want to follow me and find out more about RNGC, Britain's premier backyard golf course, you can find me on Instagram at RNGC2021. Thanks for listening.